I was thinking of trying to go pro in the game. Tips. First of all, what does pro mean for you? That's super important because different people understand different things in a pro. What does pro mean for you? Up 2,500 global. Okay, that's a different definition from pro that I have then. Because pro means for me you're making money off of it. That's pro. Then of course some people have the definition of semi-pro means you make money off of it but you don't live off of it, and then pro means you live off of it. It's stupid. Pro means you make money off of it, okay? But you mean you just want to be competitive at a game, right? Like that's what I would describe as competitive. Like I want to be competitive at a game means like to me, or like actual competitive, like high level competitive means like you become good at a game. Is that what you mean? Or do you mean you want to make money off of it? I want to be able to rival the top players. I don't care about the money. Okay, so you want to be competitive then. You want to be competitive. Dude, that's a very fucking general question. That's a very general question. To get good at a game, you have to understand what makes people good at the game. And to be good at the game, there are two aspects to it. There are two aspects to it. So there's the competitive aspect to it, the actual competition that is the same in every game and in every competition you are in. You have to understand how competition works and how to be competitive. If you don't talk about skill only, if you really want to be competitive, you have to understand how competition works. And there are like a few books on that. I like the, what was it? This book right here. Beautiful book. Beautiful book. I shouldn't. Uzo actually. Oh wait, no, that's different. That's different though. Okay, so there are two aspects to it, right? And the game you're trying to learn is different though, because you don't compete in the same way. I was talking about competition where you're actively playing against someone else, actively. Where like their decision making influences your decision making. Art of learning is still important though. Art of learning is still very good. Art of learning goes into how to learn shit, especially in competition, or like not only in competition where you're fighting against someone else. A lot of its competition about its lessons are also really good for outside of competition. So you should read this. You should read this. Okay, so since the whole competition, so I was about to say like if you want to get competitive at something, there are two aspects. There's the competition aspect and there's the game itself, or like the thing that you want to learn, the sport, the game, whatever. I'm gonna say game because that's where I'm from. So the competition aspect we can ignore to the most extent, but there's still the mindset of it, of like being able to perform in tournaments. If that is important for you, you have to learn that. And that is a skill on its own, being able to perform under pressure. And actually, still, this book pretty good for it. I can give you one tip, and that is drink energy drinks and play the game. If you're like me, energy drinks have the same body, like they give me the same kind of body reaction as being nervous in a tournament. Where like my heart rate goes up and I notice it and I can't keep it down and shit gets annoying and like I get, you know? So being on energy drinks is really fascinating for me to practice competition. It might be the same for you. That's interesting to perform under stress. But to actually learn a game, it's any game. It's you have to understand the game mechanics. And you have to understand how to learn those game mechanics. So there are like, again, in that aspect, there are two aspects to it. You have to understand learning, how would I put this? You want to understand what makes people good. Thank you for the follow. You want to understand what makes people good. What skills do these people have? How these interact with each other, and how the pros learn those skills. In StarCraft that would mean you have to understand, for example, what macro is. And in every specific aspect of macro, you have to understand how macro interacts with each other. And then thirdly, what is really important, and that goes into the larger meta aspect of like how do you want to learn that? And with also, it's interesting because with also, there's no strategy against someone. So just like with speedrunning, where you gotta understand the mechanics. You want to understand how people learn them, but it's a little bit simpler because you don't have to worry about how your mechanics interact with the other person. With also specifically, because it's really just, for example, also is a good, I actually know also. So like how you want to learn that is you want to figure out what things there are to learn. There is, so like here's one layer. This is how I would talk about it. You want to figure out the layers. Here's one layer. The layer is streaming. The layer is jumping. Okay, let's take those two. Let's take those two. You have streaming, you have jumping. That's the first layer. Then what does that actually mean? What does that actually mean? And then with, for example, streaming, it's maybe feeling for rhythm, maybe actually pressing the keys, and how those interact with each other. And then thirdly, how that interacts with your mouse movement, or tablet movement, right? Which is a different category, which also goes into jumping, right? So you've got those things. And then you want to go, and that's and like that jump to those layers already a lot of people aren't doing. And then you want to go one step deeper of like, what actually am I doing? What are my eye movements? What are my finger movements? How do I improve on those? Like, for example, what I did with StarCraft with my new keyboard, where like for last week, a lot of time I wasn't as active with the chat because I was concentrating of like, how are my fingers moving? What would be the most efficient way my fingers should be moving? And how can I get used to that feeling of how my fingers should be moving? And thankfully for you, with also, on the one hand, thankfully for Uzi, you don't have to think about what your opponent is doing, you just do your thing. On the other hand, everyone has that advantage, so it isn't an advantage anymore, right? So, that is like the mechanical aspect. Basically, you want to be aware of everything. You want to make it conscious. You want to make everything conscious. It doesn't matter what difficulty you play, as long as the time you spend with the game is conscious in some direction. What I like to go through with my coaches is like the idea of like, you can push yourself. You can push yourself. It's important to make conscious decisions of like pushing yourself and not pushing yourself. In StarCraft, there's this interesting thing of like, you can do an Archon drop, right? And lower league players, you often tell you just do the build order, but don't actually do the Archon drop. Just like build the shit, but don't do it. And what like the best way to do it would be is to like have some games where you actively focus on the macro if you don't feel comfortable with it yet. But also have some games where you actually kind of push yourself a little bit more and then see where the mistakes start happening. And that's very important to notice, oh, this is where the mistakes start happening. And you want to practice being in a situation where no mistakes should happen. You want to practice where you're in a situation where mistakes start to happen, because then you notice your mistakes, right? And then it depends on the scenario, right? With also most of like 99% of your time will be spent on practice. Everything is practice or fun. There are no tournaments in that sense, like in StarCraft. Where in StarCraft, being in a tournament means you don't spend your time forcing out mistakes. You don't spend your time pushing yourself unless you feel like you can push yourself and do it correctly. You know what I mean? While on ladder, you can spend your time pushing yourself a lot more, unless you don't feel like it, because there's also the resource of like your own attention or your own energy, right? You only have that much energy during the day, especially if you work. You only have that much energy during the day, so you want to be conscious with it. So like you want to make conscious decision of like, you know what, today I don't have as much energy, so I think that little energy that I have won't be spent on pushing, but more refining what I already have. You know what I mean? Like there's this mix of like learning something new, but also refining what you already have. How do I improve my consistency? You play a lot. That is the only moment where the only thing I can tell you, you play a lot. That's the only thing you can improve consistency with. That's the only thing. You want to play consciously. You want to work. You don't want to play a lot like mindlessly. But you have to play more. Toten got the right word there. Practice makes permanent. And that's, by the way, that is my key problem. That is my key problem. I am the least, you all know that, you watch my stream. I am the least consistent player there is. Because one, I don't play that much. And two, I don't play that much with focus. Right? I don't play that much with focus. So that's what keeps my consistency from getting better. Practice doesn't make permanent, proper practice makes permanent. Of course, yeah. Yeah. So basically there are 2 play modes you always have. You have the mode of you focus on something specific. Let's say 3. You focus on only something specific if you're learning something completely new. For example, in StarCraft that would be, I have like, what is building probes? Or like, what is building gateways? You only focus on that and everything else goes, like, it doesn't matter. There's the second mode of you focus something a little bit, but you still work on everything else a little bit. It's like you focus a little bit more. Like you already build probes, but you don't do it as consistently as you want to. So in the next few games, you're gonna focus on the probes. And also that would mean, and also that would mean the first step would be you only play maps with jumps. The second step would be you play maps with a few jumps and you focus more on those maps. Or like you play general maps, but you focus specifically on jumps and everything else is nah. And the third step is you do everything as good as you could. Just playing without a certain focus is also very important. And it's all about playing, like consistency, that's the thing. Consistency is all about playing a lot. No matter if it's, it is important that it's proper. But consistency is about playing a lot. That is the thing behind consistency. It's about playing a lot. Which is why I would say that the biggest thing that makes Cyril and Showtime be better than anyone else is they just enjoy not only of course, but they enjoy the game more. That is, I think, the main thing. They enjoy the game more, so they play more. When you see Cyril or Neeb or Showtime or Drogo or someone else talk about the game, they just love talking about it. If you talk to pros, you can always talk to them about StarCraft. Even if they get annoyed by some things, they still have this innate fascination with the game. If you don't have the innate fascination of the game, you will not be the best. That is why I will never be the best. Because I always need something else going on. I can't just play StarCraft. I need to work on games, or I need to work on something creative. Which is why I will never be the best. Interviews are kind of a bad example. Because you don't talk to them privately. But if you talk to pros privately about StarCraft, they all have this same innate fascination with the game. Or this fun, or whatever. Of course it shows differently. That's personality. Everyone has a different fascination. Everyone has a different fascination with it. But there's a same level of fascination. We're damn, they love the game. In their own specific ways, but they do. They do.